It's time to discuss my thoughts for the 8th film I saw at this year's Melbourne International Film Festival. I got to see an Australian premiere screening of The Bad Guys 2. So, let's get into it. So at a lot of the major Australian film festivals, there's always one family screening for an animated movie or just a family movie in general. They're always kind of a big event at each of these festivals, and I have never really had the chance to go to one of these before, as these types of films just don't normally appeal to me. However, The Bad Guys 2 I felt a little bit different about because I'd heard so many good things about the first one that it was such a good surprise, and I hadn't actually seen the first one yet until I started preparing for this screening, and I ended up buying a Blu-ray copy and watching The Bad Guys 1, which was just such a delightful surprise and just instantly made me excited for this screening. I felt so out of place. It was me and my wife and a bunch of families as expected, but to be honest, I just felt so thrilled with this movie because like the first one, The Bad Guys 2 is just a delightful surprise and just a good bit of fun cinema. I kind of find that both these movies sit in a place between Pixar at their best, where they're going for high art and deep emotional connections and things that just are super impactful, and then Illumination's type of unserious, just goofy, appealing to really small kids. The Bad Guys and The Bad Guys 2 kind of sit in between both of them, where they at times have a little bit of edge to them and some jokes and themes that may be taken a little bit more seriously, but as a whole, it's just a fun little adventure that kids can watch, families can watch, and have a good time with. Also, the author of the Bad Guys novels, Aaron Blabey, was at this screening and introduced it, and he did mention that he felt like The Bad Guys 2 was even more in line with what he envisioned his characters in a movie to be, and he really big upped the third act sequence of this movie, which does deliver. And I think in terms of quality, I would say The Bad Guys 2 doesn't surpass The Bad Guys 1, but it doesn't sink beneath it either. I think they're on the exact same level of quality. I think they're both just great animated movies that are just filled with so much expression and great characters with great arcs. And the new characters that are introduced in this one are just as interesting and have their own little spin on things. I saw the trailer and saw that they were introducing the bad girls as characters in this, and I sort of predicted that it was going to go a certain way with this that would have been a little bit eye-rolling. However, it didn't go that way and actually did something very interesting with these characters that I quite enjoyed, and it made the film really enjoyable as a whole. Like the first, there's a really kick-ass car chase sequence. Both these car chase sequences in the first one and the second one are excellent, and honestly, some of my favorite car chase scenes that I've seen in a movie, period. They're just so fun. They're filled with excitement and cool things that can only be done in animation. This stuff can never be pulled off in live action because it's just so crazy and over the top. And I love it, and I think it really works and sets this film to just a really exciting tone. I think the film is also really well edited. There are some snippets of this movie that remind me of the Sly Raccoon PS2 series, which if you've played those games, they are just the best, and I just want to tell you that I'm a huge fan of that series myself, and if you haven't played those games, go check them out because they're incredible. The way that those cutscenes are handled and the way they're edited, I see bits of that in The Bad Guys, and it just weirdly takes me back to that time when I was a kid playing Sly Raccoon, and that was always such a blast to me. None of the characters really get downgraded. Some, I guess, aren't as taken as seriously as others, like Snake, who was a big piece of The Bad Guys 1, and then in The Bad Guys 2, he does have a really funny romance angle with another character, which was just fun on an entertainment standpoint, but he doesn't have that compelling narrative like he did in the first one. But others, I think, get upgraded. I think Shark, in this case, was just a really great example of that. I think he was just absolutely hilarious in this. The way that he would do things because of his anxiety, it was just really, really funny. I think Mr. Wolf also has just a really compelling arc that isn't really too much of a big deal in the grand scheme of things of this narrative. But there were some moments in the opening sequence that just illustrate that just trying to be a good person in the world doesn't mean that you're instantly going to get rewarded in life. And it is an unfairness, but that is the way that the world works. And it's really sad and depressing. And this character goes through that a little bit, and stuff like that felt really real. And that's what I mean when I say it sits in between that Illumination and Pixar range, because you do have moments like that that are touching on some more adult themes and things that someone an adult would really only resonate with. But then it just goes into silly jokes all the time that would appeal to kids predominantly. And just working in that nice little zone makes this just such a blast as a family movie, because people of all ages can enjoy these movies. I would say there are 3 standout sequences in this film. The car chase sequence, which I mentioned, the sequence at a wedding that was just a brilliantly edited and put together heist sequence. It was really, really fun to watch, and the way that that transpires and concludes is so entertaining. And then the third act, which I probably won't go into too much detail because it kind of goes into this crazy Fast and Furious wild zone, but it works once again for the style of movie that this is, and it was just such a blast. And this was the sequence that Aaron Blabey really enjoyed. So just take his word for it. This thing is filled with entertainment, filled with laughs the whole way through, and was just such a great way to cap off this movie. And then where we see these characters go at the very end of this film, I think is so exciting and sets up an interesting future for the third Bad Guys movie. I would just say my biggest flaw with this movie is I found that it had a bit of a lull in the middle of the film where I was just not as interested as the rest of the movie, and it just didn't quite stitch together well. And I found something like that in the first one, and I think it is because that's when it's going for that full kid humor and things like that. But a child would really, really enjoy this stuff. Me as a grown man, it's probably not going to appeal to me, and I'm watching a Bad Guys movie, so that's probably what I would expect from a movie like this. So it's not the biggest issue in the world, and I think both these movies to me aren't considered masterpieces or anything like that. They're just great movies and a great time, but they don't necessarily go beyond that because they're not trying to. So I'd say that would knock down my final score of this movie as a whole, which is a 4 out of 5, because I think this is a great movie. It's just not that masterpiece level or anything like that. But is it worth taking your kids to, or just watching just to have a great time? Yeah, sure it is. It's an easy movie to watch and just have a laugh and have fun with. And those are my thoughts towards the Bad Guys 2. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.